Welcome to this episode of the Smart Leaders Sell podcast. I'm Jessica Lorimer, sales coach and leadership expert, and I am really excited to dig down into today's episode. Okay, so poddies, my podcast listeners, you are going to be super excited because for the last year, I have been talking about the wonderful Ali Brown. And Ali is somebody who I came across in my journey, as you will all remember, when I was looking for somebody who could cut through all of the online noise. And when I was tired of feeling like I had to fit into an Eiffel Tower shaped box. So please join me in welcoming the amazing Ali Brown to your earbuds today. Welcome, Ali.
It's so great. And congrats on what you've done, Jess. I mean, your show is fantastic.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that. And guys, you can't see it, but we all know that I'm doing the traditional, oh my God, this is so cool, but I'm trying to hide it, trying to keep it smooth. I'm definitely not going to be great at that, by the way. I'll just totally fangirl at some point over the episode. But I am so grateful to have you on today because for me, you have been one of the people in the online space that has taken a real stand. And there have been certain episodes in your amazing podcast, Glambition Radio, that you have called out certain aspects of the online industry. You know, in particular, things that we've talked about on this podcast have been the episode around Stop the Online Insanity and around renegade leadership. And for me, you have been this woman online who has been making big, bold decisions for a long time to help other people build their businesses in the way that they really want to build them. And that's been awesome and inspiring and also incredibly motivating to help move forward with our businesses and build them from the ground up.
Wonderful.
So what is it that you do every day?
Like in general or for work?
Behind the scenes of the Ali Brown empire.
This kind of links into a bit of my story, which I'm sure we'll get to. But, you know, right now I'm coming off my event, Iconic 2.0, which we just had here in Phoenix. And the average revenues in the room were 1.6 million per woman in there. And it leads into I think what we're talking about today is it's a different conversation. And so what I love most right now is working with the women who are at that level that it's time to now look at what you really want to create. And I just got off the phone with a client who, like many women, when we get started, we subscribe to these formulas. And right now, a lot of it, what we're doing is the undoing. I think this is the great undoing of everything we've been learning the last 7 years.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I'm also gutted that I couldn't be at Iconic, but my boyfriend is currently serving in Oman at the moment with the army. So
oh, wow.
I'm just waiting for him to come back. I'm waiting for that plane to get in. And we didn't know what the dates were going to be, and I didn't want to miss him getting home. I just think that for me, the conversation that you started online, and you were the person who started this, you know, there was me and a particular friend of mine, Heather Gray, and we were sat there and I'd found this episode from you because previously I'd been listening to episodes, your interview episodes, and we were listening to Stop the Online Insanity together on Zoom, and we were talking about it and we kept pausing it and listening to the key points that we found were most interesting because both of us were relatively new business owners. I was about, at that time, 3 years in, and Heather was about 18 months into her business. And we both wanted to share it everywhere because suddenly someone was talking about making the money that they wanted their way. Mm-hmm. You know, and the particular line for me that I loved was around you talking about hairstyles. People having particular hairstyles, particular branded photos.
Oh, it's still around. And what's with these floral dresses? What the fuck? Like, everyone starts copying each other. It's just madness. It's complete madness.
So this is the thing. And this is, I guess, the conversation that I really want to have with you today is we all agree with you. I agree with you. I know, honestly, hundreds of people in my audience who've now listened to that episode and really unequivocally agree with you. But how can we take ourselves out of that pack, right? And how can we actually stop corroborating this idea of being photoshopped in Paris? How can the newbies right? I'm like, there was my insightful question.
Oh my God. Okay, you just freaking nailed it. I'm going to use that one right in front of the Eiffel Tower. Like, woo. So I think it'd be good to start with a clarification. And that is that Formulas are fantastic for getting a feel for the industry. They're a great way to get started. They're how I started. I braved all those, sausage fest internet marketing conferences years ago for all you ladies. I want you to know I sat through like these all male lineups. This is way before the Me Too movement. I mean, completely inappropriate stuff going on. And I was the only woman on stage at many of these things. But I was following what I was learning at all these conferences, right? And then putting stuff together. And then I actually came up with a formula that I called the Online Success Blueprint, which for years, I mean, we sold like thousands and thousands of this thing. I had big events around it. It was a formula that worked. And what shifted for me, and I think you should all start thinking about this, and again, this depends on your industry, but if you're in this general kind of business coaching area, right, or life coaching, you're an online type of coach or consultant, when you start seeing everyone start to do the same thing, if you wait too long, you will lose your positioning. And that is a mistake that I actually made. So I went on then to create, I was kind of done with internet marketing. I was feeling, it's a blessing and a curse is that I get bored. My creative cycle is about 3 years. So it's something to be aware of if you're starting to get kind of antsy. It may just be you and you're craving something new. So then I created a big program called Elevate, which is a little more comprehensive business coaching. The problem was then we were looking around with what everyone else is doing and everyone just started doing the same stuff. And I knew I hit a real problem when we were getting people asking on the phone saying, what's the difference between Allie's coaching and these other chicks with the cool videos and they're dancing in them? I'm like, if you can't tell the difference between this program and the dancing coach who you can go party with, right? Then there's a problem. And what am I doing wrong? And instead of, trying to fix the industry, I decided, what am I best at? What is my unique category of one that no one can touch me? And it took me a few years, but I cleaned out and then put the pedal to the metal there. So if you're listening right now, again, there's nothing wrong. Use the formulas to get started. I would experiment as much as you can. But there's going to be a point, maybe one of 3 things happen. One is they stop working the way they did before. You'll start to see signs that you'll just think, oh, we just need more Facebook ads. That's not the solution. Okay? Take a look beyond that. Okay. Don't just put more money into the model that's not working. Okay. So symptom number 1 is that it's not working the way it did. Symptom number 2 is that you're losing your positioning and people can't tell the difference between you and other people in your industry. And symptom number 3 is that you may be feeling just a calling to something greater. You may be going to these events that you've had a lot of fun at, but you're looking around going, is this what I'm going to have on my epitaph, that I was this badass girl boss, gutsy coach, this thing kind of going around? Is there a greater calling to my work? The women who come to me are sometimes experiencing all 3 of these, and they think there's something wrong with them. They think they're doing something wrong. And I say, oh no, hun. You're about to now pave your own way. And it's a very exciting time because you've proven yourself. You've proven the model that you knew. Now you're going to invent your own.
And I love that because we're at a time where people preach authenticity or they preach being unique, but actually their actions show them to be following the crowd. And so actually you end up in this mentality. I see a lot of people that are below the 6-figure mark who are trying to get there, who are trying to model the things that other people are parroting. These are unique things. These are going to make you more authentic. If you show up and pimp your pain for profit and all this kind of stuff, that's going to make you the person that people want to go after next. Unfortunately, there's a big difference between saying something and showing up and doing it, right?
Yeah.
And that's the bit that you're teaching so well.
There's a lot of, this probably goes without saying, but it's worth noting that social is what changed everything in our industry, by the way. And I'm going to date myself now. Okay, ladies. But when I started, there was no social media. And so I literally would just look at stuff, and then figure it out and do it. Friday nights, I would just, search on how to do HTML code. Like I loved it. I had so much fun. But there was nothing to compare myself to, really. And I think there was an advantage to that. Now, most of what we see is a complete facade. People are modeling their entire businesses off the surface of something they see online versus actually understanding how the business works. And I see a lot of women, and it's sad, they are cashed out, they are coached out, they've spent money on courses and programs that only got them to then invest in other courses and programs. And now you need this and now you need that. A lot of you beginners, I mean, really, you can get started without a website. You can get started like just with a LinkedIn page and go get some clients. And when I give people this, I don't work with a lot of people, beginners anymore. I end up talking to them a lot of events and their heads spin around. They look like they're going to throw up because they've already spent like $50,000 and drained their retirement account on thinking they needed all this slick branding and beautiful stuff, way before they actually figured out their model. And so it's a loaded topic. We're diving into a lot of areas, but I think moving a little more slowly and finding out who you want to really listen to is worth its weight in gold.
Yeah. And I think as well, one of the things that I'm forever telling my audience is you've got to choose your one person, per time, because otherwise what happens is everyone's trying to do everything all at once. They're trying to do the marketing and the branding and the list building. And so they're listening to 3 or 4 different people who don't necessarily all correlate, regardless of specialism. They're just all across the map in terms of what they might believe about selling styles or marketing styles. That then becomes confusing too. So you really have to pick one person.
Don't you think it's good though that I'm going to offer a flip side and we can play with that. I think sometimes they latch on too quickly to someone they think is like the truth and the life and the only way, right? It's like the evangelical approach to like marketing, like I am the only way you're going to get to heaven kind of thing. It's a good point though, is I see them getting distracted though, if they follow too many people. And then, maybe you shouldn't sign up for 8 different courses and coaching programs in the same year. It's a balance, I think.
Yeah, and it's about finishing what you started. I think a lot of people, like you've just said, you don't need branding or really slick website to get your first client, or your 10th client or your 50th in some cases. Sure, it can make you feel better about going out and do the actual selling, but actually that's the important bit. First, you have to realize what's going to bring the biggest transformation for me and my client, and then how am I going to sell that to people? How am I going to make sure that I can communicate adequately that people need this, and I think there's a really underrated skill in doing that. I mean, your podcast, for example, is one of the ones that I listen to because every time I listen to it, I learn something. I gain something. I'm like, oh, right, that's really cool. And I'll go out and I'll share it and I'll talk about you because I actively gain something every single time I listen to your content. However, I think what social media has done is it's kind of lowered the barrier to entry. Like when you started, not having social media kind of a blessing in that you were the only real person kind of doing what you're doing at these events. But also now we have so much choice, and it's like looking at a massive Chinese menu and thinking, oh God, like, what do I get? And nobody's really sure. You kind of haphazardly pick and scroll and you consume all this information from sources that aren't necessarily qualified to be given the advice in the first place. How can people watch out for that?
Yeah, the barrier to entry is such a great metaphor. And I also say no one's checking ID at the door. It's like the pool party that now is getting gross in Vegas. I gave that analogy. Like, the daytime pool parties, I see pictures of those things. I'm like, do not ever put me in that pool. Like no one's getting out and going to the bathroom. All right. It's disgusting. And then it's like by the end of the day, it's too full. They're not checking ID. The DJ got bad. Like it's just a bad, big party and you need to get out of there. Yeah, there's no barrier to entry. And because look, it's brought a lot of blessings in that it's lowered a barrier to entry for women in business, which has been phenomenal. You see more women now starting businesses, especially in using the internet to now work from home, raising a family at the same time, getting started, getting their brand out there. But at the same time, it's what's created the mess that we're all figuring out.
Yeah. And going back to that idea of positioning and, everybody copying each other, if we are all in the same dirty pool, so to speak, I love it. If we're all in that, how do we become the kinds of people that are confident to exit the pool? Because I know a lot of women in business, they want to be different. They want to step up. They want to come away from, maybe the stuff they're seeing every day, but they don't feel confident to do it. They kind of feel like if they step out, then they're going to lose the game. They're not going to hit 6 figures because they're going to be different and they feel like it's going to be different in a bad way.
I think it's one of those things where when you're ready. You may be getting frustrated with your certain clients that you don't want to work with anymore. You may be tired of having the same conversation. You may quietly know that you're better than a lot of your peers, but you don't want to say it or point it out. You may also, I know for a while I really liked having all my friends at a certain level in the industry, and I didn't want to lose their friendship, if that makes sense. I was playing at a certain level and almost holding back because I knew I couldn't really hang around them anymore if I was going to go here to a different level. But you have to listen. This is business. So you're going to feel something, and then you have to back it up and know. You need some evidence. My evidence for me was always that I would have miraculous success with a certain type of client, and then another type of client, it would be more challenging. I wouldn't enjoy it as much. They'd be frustrated. They just weren't at the level that they could get results with the type of coaching I wanted to provide. They need to go work with someone for beginners. And the more I really made notes of that and stopped blaming myself, but instead made observations and what was working, what feels like just joyous, the work that you do, and where are you untouchable in your positioning? So when I was going through this process, I have to say my ego fought it a lot because I always had the biggest events, the biggest programs. I mean, I hired acrobats in Vegas. We rented out Tao. I mean, you miss these days, Jess. I'm sorry. It was fun. Spent a lot of money giving them this amazing experience because I loved giving people an experience. It was so much fun. But I knew my real genius work was with the women who are at a certain level. It's leading leaders. And you may know that your genius work lies in something more specific than what you're doing now. There's a great book I recommend, came out several years ago, but I mail a copy of this book to everyone who comes to my events and my clients. It's called The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. Deceivingly simple. Yeah, you're nodding, Deceivingly simple. In fact, some people are like, well, really go through this. And you may not be ready for it, but have the book because you will be. I remember reading it years ago and thinking, oh, this is nice. The kind of coachy coach book. What is this thing? And then I picked it up again a few years ago and just started crying, like sobbing, like someone had put into words what I was feeling, that I was trapped in excellence. I was trapped in what was proven and working. And here's the thing too, it was all working. That was very guilt-inducing to say, you know what? I know I've built all these programs and there's hundreds of people in here and I built this big team, to look at them and say, in not so many words, I want something different now. I know where my genius zone lies, and it means I could probably fire all of you, shut down everything I have, change our phone number, and probably have this really simple model, which my ego fought with, by the way. I wanted busyness and complication. I meant I was important. That now, I had my twins 5 years ago, 5.5 years ago almost now. And I now work about 3 days a week. If you add up the time I work, get to spend time with my family. We travel. My husband's from Australia. This took a few years to happen, I want to emphasize. But really just start making notes, start paying attention to what feels really good and the work that you feel is your unique contribution versus stuff you've piled on that you think is part of the business.
I really love that. And I think it's so interesting because one of the things that I really resented when I started my own business was this idea that we kept getting told women can have it all. You can have it all. You can have a baby, you can have a career, you can have a business, you can do all these things. But actually, it's going to weigh you down if you don't do it in the right way for you. And for me, I felt like it was, we were perpetuating this massive lie. We were telling women, yeah, you can have everything you want, but also it's going to be really difficult and really challenging. And, nobody's ever going to mention the fact that you could make it easier by focusing in on the stuff you love, right?
I love that. And actually, I think you just helped identify something that we couldn't have it all when we did it the male model way, right? Like that masculine model, like here's how you do this.
Yeah.
It's exhausting. I've had 2 clients come to me after being hospitalized. They are working so hard. It makes me want to cry talking about it. I mean, they are working that freaking hard, copying these models and working with sometimes male coaches. I'm not blaming the guys. The guys are doing a great job. They do it their way. I don't resonate with it, but there's some guys doing some great stuff. But we cannot model that. We need to create our own model. And here's where I think all of us need to be involved in this. You need to be paying attention to what works for you.
And I think people need to be joining the revolution and realizing that you have to take responsibility for your own happiness.
Mm-hmm.
You have to take responsibility for where you want to be in business and not for the common goal. We're here today ultimately on the 6-figure series, because a lot of people are perpetuating the market. You should want to make six figures, you know, and then you should want to make 7 or 8 or however your, you know, your trajectory goes. But the reality is that I don't think a lot of people, business owners in general, take a step back and think about what they actually want. Do they want six figures? You know, do they realize what that's going to entail for them in terms of work, in terms of take-home pay, in terms of actual profit? Or do they want something different? Do they want more? Do they want a different kind of lifestyle? Do they want a business that's built around that?
Well, and I think something you need to remember is that there's so many different models and choices. So, you know, six figures could be 10 clients at 10 grand each that you talk to once a month, right? Versus busting your ass, hiring 20 people to sell like 20,000 ebooks, right? There's many different models, but we get attached to the numbers and the metrics. One of the exercises I did at Iconic was, and I won't give away the secret, like I do this whole thing with them to come to this conclusion, but really the point is we start off often worshiping false metrics. The metrics are our gods. Like it could be that six-figure, you know, mark. It could be having a certain number of clients in the programs. It could be showing your room is full, right? Even though you let everyone bring 10 friends and bring your dog. We got a mastermind for your dog, you know, like, you know what I mean? Like no one's questioning this stuff going on. And I want to introduce you to an amazing word called net, your net profit. And when I shifted that, like, cause I was doing the whole revenue game, and look, there's times that revenue can make you feel great. You know, the $1 million mark, especially, and breaking the six-figure mark as well. Those are big milestones for yourself and your pride and also probably being invited into some circles or different programs. But you need to focus on your net, because I see some of the women getting started spending more on coaching than they're actually making. They may be in programs and all kinds of things they're not even ready for, right? So just pace this. That's the great thing is there's no rush. Just look at what really matters to you right now. When I shifted to, you know what, I have a family now. I'm going to bring my husband into work with me. So this is about net. This is about what I'm bringing home for me and my family. And am I working in my joy? Am I making an impact? And am I bringing home some cash? And, you know, everyone's definitions and what's important to them is different, but I really encourage you to look at net profit. And this may be more of an advanced conversation, but do you mind if I add on to that?
No, please do.
Is that okay? So quick example of a client I was working with several years ago. She came in doing between probably 3 and 4 million. And she was just, I don't mean to paint a grim picture of multiple 7 figures because there's some very happy pictures. But because we're talking about the problems with the industry, I don't want you all to think that like you're going to die, you know, or end up in the hospital. But because she had done it the traditional way, right? So the only way to make more money traditionally in these types of coaching types of models is you add more clients, raise your prices, do more events, right? The whole thing, hamster wheel is going and she's raking it in. Like cash is coming in. That's not a problem. She's exhausted. That's the problem. So the first thing I'll do is we have a VIP day together and we'll map out like everything on the wall, lots of Post-its and big papers. And I kept coming back to one program, which she said was generating a lot of revenue. And I said, you know, what's your net on that? Because it seems to take a lot of work. She's like, oh, and I could ballpark it, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, go back and do your numbers. And this was a big coaching program. And I said, I want you to add up everything from the event that sells the coaching, because it really was the only reason she was having the event, to hiring the people to do the calls, the sales calls, hiring coaches, because then she didn't want to do the coaching. Then you hire coaches to work for you, right? That's the next model. And it just went on. And I kept poking at her on it and she got pissed. And finally she came back with the numbers. She goes, well, and she never swears. She was like, she said, do you know what I brought home from that whole program, that whole year? And this was a 7-figure program. I said, what? She goes, $150,000. She said, I could write an ebook right now, turn it into a PDF myself, stick it up and sell that probably with a few emails. And here's the thing. In the beginning, that program was what she was known for. It was a very kind of like one of those signature programs, right? And that brought people to her. But at this point, she had several other great things going on. And she said, I think I want to go over here. So that gave her permission then to start simplifying, right? And again, there's no one model for everybody, but these are insightful conversations to have because it's the stuff that no one's talking about. She re-engineered her whole business, got rid of about half her team. Her monthly overhead is like so much lower and she's really happy. And honestly, her net, her personal net now is higher than it was before. Revenues came down, but she stopped counting that. She'd already proven that to herself, right? she started focusing on what she was bringing home and banking.
I think that's amazing because somebody then builds the business around the life that they want. But also there's a lot of idea of permission and release in the work that you do.
I like that, the way you framed that.
Yeah, it's a lot about, for me, looking from the outside in. And believe me, guys, you're listening to this and this is my opportunity where I'm literally like, I'm going to work with Ali and it's going to I'm figuring out when Sam is going to be home so I can be like, I'm going to the US, see you later. But it is, the thing for me that stands out in your work is that a lot of it is about having real life and real time conversations with people that give them the permission to say, right, actually, I've done the formula. I've hit the goal that I want to hit, or, maybe even I haven't hit it in the way that I want to hit because I've been trying to do it the wrong way. Now is my time to give myself the permission to move forward and try something different and release the expectation that I have of myself as a woman, as a business owner, as a person, to try and do all the things and be internet perfect.
Yeah. What's interesting, I think we come out of the gate, how in the traditional working world, they're all, we all know now there's no such thing as that one long-term career. You're going to have several careers over your lifetime, right? Like there's kind of an arc, probably an arching theme, but then, I don't know about you, but I hopped jobs all through my 20s until I figured out, my God, this isn't what I wanted. And then my business has gone through evolutions. And I think a lot of women get into these industries and think this is going to be it. And even when it goes well, when they want to change it, there's a lot of guilt. You just brought up permission and release. I love that. I wrote that down. A lot of this is negotiating with the ego, negotiating with the guilt we may have, because look, those were very hard conversations I had to have with my team. This took 2 years to happen. Hard conversations with a business partner who was working in the background on a lot of the operations stuff, but then to have the conversation saying, I want to move to this new model. I've had these twins. What are you thinking for the future? I think it's time to part ways. That was interesting. And that's all I'll say.
That must have been comfortable to the max.
It was horrible. It was horrible. I'm going to be point blank. It was horrible. I felt horrible. I don't like to get legal help, but you have to in these matters, to protect yourself. It just if the whole thing felt very weird. It took me about 2 years to get through. But the joyous thing to witness was that, I was so secretly terrified that people wouldn't respect me anymore when I didn't have thousands of people in programs and stuff. Who is Ali Brown if she doesn't have the big events? Who's Ali Brown if she doesn't do this and that? So I really had to decide, it's about me. What am I going to stand for? And whoever wants to follow me, they will. And then the biggest blessing was I started hearing from women saying, I've been watching what you're doing, and now I know that you're the coach for me. And I'm like, really? Are you sure? Because I'm not doing big stuff. Like I feel like I should be doing big stuff, right? And showing I'm doing big stuff and show I'm doing all this stuff online. And they're like, no, I really like the way you're thinking now. And I'm like, oh, this is it. This is it. So, there's always that gray area where you're turning the page to the next chapter and you don't quite see where it's going to land, but you feel it. You feel it. And again, I use the word evidence because I think women need to then flip on that rational brain. You're going to have evidence that it will be okay, that you're not going to be on the street with the cardboard sign. Let's talk ourselves. We overthink these things. And sometimes I'll have to ask my clients, I'm like, when they're really fretting about a decision, I'm like, will you be homeless? They're like, well, no, right? Like we make this a survival thing. And for women, some of this emotion that comes up is in our DNA. If we step out of the pack, if we disrupt something that's going well, if we speak out or stand out, back in cavewoman days, we'd be kicked out of the tribe. We could die. You could literally die. And if you feel that in your body when you're making these decisions, or when someone comments something on Facebook and you're like, what's that? And, just come back to the part that like you are safe and you are here for a purpose and you are here for probably something so grand, and your 12-part course is not going to be the answer in some cases.
I really like that. I think it's so interesting and it's really refreshing to hear people talk about people pleasing, and that even at a leadership perspective, some of the people who, I look up to online and people who are following me look up to online. It's refreshing to know that everybody does have the same feelings and that actually it is new level, new devil, right? You might hit your income goal, but you still might have the same need to want to have a big tribe to prove or to give you that validation that you belong.
Yeah. Yeah. And here's the thing too, don't regret what you've done. You know, people ask me, oh, do you wish you would have done it differently? And there may have been one or two things that I probably wouldn't have put pedal to the metal so fast on going back, knowing what I know now. But also those big programs for me are what earned my way into some awards programs and being an Ernst & Young winning women, because we were at a certain number of, multiple millions of revenue. And so enjoy that growth, enjoy it for what it was, and think of it as this just finely tuned, finely crafted novel that if you're feeling it, it may be time to turn the page. And, ironically, my next level is probably going to involve a 12-step course.
I would be
like, because I'm working on new content. I'm thinking, my God, this may be a course. I may be doing a course again. I'm not sure. I'm feeling it out, but I'm not married to something. But, that's the exciting thing, is I've taken time to percolate on it.
Yeah. And I really like that. I guess my final question to you is, for all of the renegade leader women out there, or for all the women who want to at some point in their life be the next, and I'm going to use the next Ali Brown, but really their own name, and who want to achieve that level of, okay, great, it's okay to not have a big tribe, or it's okay to want to have a big tribe and actually just feel confident making their own decisions in their business and building that business that they want. What's your one thing that you would tell them to hold on to while it is tough and while it is challenging?
You've got to stand for something, and you have to come back to your core values and what you stand for. I know the word values is overused and abused in some places in coaching, and it's overdone, but really, when I was making that decision, I came back to also revisiting my values and what I stood for. And one of my top values has always been freedom. And I realized if I start resenting a project or something I've set up or a program, then I get really antsy, right? And that's one of my values. Your values could change. Family was never a value for me until I had children. Suddenly I wanted to redesign my life around that. And it's one of the top 3 now. So get clear on what your values are. There's all kinds, if you just Google values exercise online, you'll find some worksheets and things, I'm sure. And once you're clear on what you really stand for and what makes you happy, you have to just keep coming back to that and trust. That's my best advice. And then beyond that, positioning wise, if I could tell you all to do one thing right now to cause a ruckus, it's to disrupt your industry. Like, honestly, if you want to make waves and do something different, honestly, look at what everyone else is doing and then go do the opposite. Iconic is a workshop that I sold out with a long copy sales page and an old headshot. Okay. No videos, no funnel, right? I have a list so I could do this, but everything I did, because Iconic stood for doing things differently. And I said, then I can't market this the same way. I'm going to market this totally differently. I mailed everyone kits before the event. I wanted them to get something tangible. Just have fun with this and it's a great exercise. Sit down with a glass of wine, make a list of like the top 10 things that your industry does over and over and over and over, and then break every one of those norms. Have fun with that.
I love that. And you have inspired my inner rebel to come out. I'll be there on my whiteboard later on, scribbling out all of these things. So I'm blaming you fully.
I love it.
The wine memes that are about to explode on the internet. Seriously, though, thank you so much. This has been amazing. I know that, my poddies are absolutely going to love it. Where can they find you? Where can they find more information on potentially this, awesome course, not course that's going to be coming?
Continued. Something's coming out next year. Just go to alibrown.com, ALI Brown, get on the email list. You're going to get, okay, so I need to say something. The opt-in, it came out like several years ago. People still love this audio. Everything's being redone. But on my events page, if you want to get on the list for the next workshop, that's a good place to go. Listen to the show. It's Glambition Radio on iTunes. And I'm really active on Instagram. That's my happy place now. I think Facebook's a shit show. And I'm really happy on Instagram. So you'll find happy things from me there and a little disruption.
Well, I'm excited because I've recently joined the Instagram bandwagon. So there we go.
I just joined in June because I'm like, oh, this feels better. It's happier for the most part.
This is my first Instagram story like 2 days ago.
It's kind of fun. Yeah.
I'm enjoying it. Seriously, though, thank you so much for taking the time today. I really, really appreciate it. I know that everybody who's listening will too. And if you guys have had big takeaways from this episode, which we all know you will, because mind blown, please make sure you go over to Instagram and let Ali know how she has impacted you today. Because sometimes we can all feel like people at the top I'm saying that with air quotes, that they know the impact that they have on others. But actually, we also have egos that occasionally like to be stroked, and also we like to know that we're doing good things in the world. So if you have a key takeaway, make sure you head over to Instagram and let Ali know how she's impacted you. And then definitely, if you are not already, make sure that you go and sign up for that opt-in and listen to Glambition Radio. And I will be joining you each week with those new episodes too. Have an awesome week, and we will see you in the next episode.